breaking news coverage. It's now nationally syndicated.
So actually, I was combing through some of her boxes and archives the other day, and ironically, I came across a letter where she had been here at Texas Women's University, and I was shocked.
Shocked why?
Because I was getting ready to come here. And I was trying on my phone because I thought I took a picture. I showed it to the young lady that's traveling with me, and I said, "Look." She said, "Oh, wow."
Did she keep notes of the places she went, the people she talked to? As someone who is now sort of curating that entire archive, in addition to all your other responsibilities, I'm curious about the records that she left behind.
Oh, wow. Well, we had a company come in and institutional thing. So I'm going to have to try to, get real serious about this. And so in doing that, I started studying more of, his philosophy of nonviolence. Started reading heavily the book Where We Go From Here, Chaos and Community. I'm rereading Strength to Love. Because it does take a lot of strength for love.
Violence as a way of life. What does that mean outside of the political context? What does it mean to live a life of nonviolence?
Well, first, the way we define it at the King Center, after really delving into studying my father's philosophy and methodology, is a love-centered way of thinking, speaking, acting, engaging that leads to personal, cultural, and societal transformation. And so it really is about having a deep, when we speak of love, we're speaking of goodwill. We're speaking of understanding goodwill towards others. Even when they have ill will towards us. And that same goodwill towards ourselves, because sometimes we can be very violent to ourselves. And so nonviolence helps us to frame all of life from this love-centered way. And the desire is to see the best come out of something, to avoid behaviors that are humiliating, that are demeaning, that are debasing. And I'm glad you brought up the language part, because what we are dealing with today is a lot of violent language. We talk about hate, but the rhetoric that many of us adopt in these times, unfortunately, is violent, because we're addressing what's coming at us. We almost trying to meet that same level of animosity with our reactive animosity. And nonviolence teaches you not to do that. It teaches you, it helps to develop a sense of emotional regulation, so that you discipline your emotions. It doesn't mean you don't feel anger. It doesn't mean you're not triggered by some things. But at the end of the day, you always keep yourself grounded in this love-centered way, because you want, and this is what undergirds his philosophy and methodology, you acknowledge the inherent dignity and worth of all human beings. And that's hard for most people to start at, because people don't act in a way that they seem to deserve dignity and respect. But from where I come from, whether we agree with it or not, there's an inherent dignity and worth in all human beings. So you start with that premise. Until you can start with that premise, it's kind of hard to truly practice nonviolence and embrace it. It doesn't mean it's not hard otherwise, but it almost makes it impossible. Because at the end of the day, you are saying this person is not deserving because they're not acting deserving. And since love is unconditional, it's agape. It has no favoritism towards anything. It's not because of anything. It's just one, as a person of faith. If you're a person of faith, you recognize that everyone's created in the image and after the likeness of God. You value that, and you want to make sure that you maintain a certain posture and not react in ways that are, I call it, that come out of our lower self. Sometimes even animalistic self. We could act in animalistic ways. So yeah, it's a disciplined way of living all the way around. It also gives you the ability to think through problems in a way that does not.
Sometimes gets forgotten in discussions about that legacy. If this planet produces enough food, enough shoes, enough houses and roofs for everybody to have what they need, what's required for the attitude adjustment where we all feel some obligation to play a part in making that? For everyone to embrace the cause of economic justice for everyone.
Well, it starts with us believing that we should all share in another parent. Someone has ill will towards you. Maybe, he felt that, he had ill will toward him. In that moment, a father, a grandfather, whatever, that is just, it's beyond me. And so when you think in these moments, because this is an election year, think policy plus. Because if a person can be reasoned with, I'd rather have someone who can be reasoned with than to have someone, who's just out of their mind. Even if I don't agree, we don't agree on all of the policy issues. So, I go on about that.
All right, here's some questions from the audience. Could you reflect on the pivotal experiences, influences, or forms of raising that contributed to the evolution of your views on LGBTQIA+ inclusion, and how those pathways might inform strategies for fostering similar shifts in others?
So, there was a point in my life, like very judgmental. Partially because I would say I was a religious zealot. And then I started shifting. And I got to a place where I had to step back and say, look, I go back to what I said. Every person is made in the image and after the likeness of God. I want to respect that. I want to understand that. And that started my journey. And I remember sitting in Korea. Two things happened. One, I was in Korea at South Korea, of course. I was watching CNN, and there was a young lady over there talking about her book, Don't Blame Me. And I was intrigued by her conversation. Her name is Ursha Manji. And she was talking about how we tend to put the labels on people and reject them by those labels. And not recognizing that those people are more than just that, whoever they are. And as I was listening to it, I was fascinated because I was like, yeah, we do that. And the interesting thing is, Ursha is Muslim, I'm Christian. She's a member of the LGBTQ plus community. I'm not. And that's weird to say because we're all a part of the community. I hope we get to a place where we're all a part of the community. I hope people hear that. Because I'm in the Black community. I'm in the Hispanic community. So we're creating all of these separations from each other instead of saying, you are part of me, I'm a part of you, we're part of the human family. And when I'm a part of the human family, I hear you, I see you, agree on everything, but one thing we agree on is, I'm gonna honor your name. What does that mean? We gotta sit down and we gotta work on what that means so that you feel seen, respected, that you feel valued, that you feel like you're being treated fair and just. So as someone sees unjust behavior, I don't agree with it. We have to figure out how do we organize at a level to deal with the laws that are allowing people say, well, there ain't no law, because Trump just tells them to do this. Well, we have congresspersons not doing their jobs. They're letting Trump do these things. And we again are not engaged at the level we should be as a citizenry to deal with our congresspeople. How do we massively organize around certain Congress? We got to figure out how to penetrate certain congresspeople across the nation. I may not live in Texas, but is there a way for me to align with people? And I'm just using Texas as an example. I can't how do I align with certain people in Texas who you may have representatives in Congress or in the Senate, who may be, there may be an opening somewhere. But if it's just left up to the people in that district, it's not going to happen. You're going to have people who work along with you and figure out a strategy to deal with those. I might be 20, if I need 30. How many Congress people do we need to defect